salutations, what it do? It's Sadat the Gamer back at you with another Marvel's Avengers video. It is finally here. The brand new patch has been released. I'm recording this the same day after I got done streaming, showing off everything new. And of course, like they said, Black Panther's broken chest piece, Nahanda's armor, has officially been patched. It's over, it's done. No more abusing this chest piece. For those that missed out on it, there was a chest piece, Nahanda's armor, that comes out in the vault missions for Black Panther. If you put it on, increase your damage by 10 times. It was very much abused, and Crystal Dynamics very quickly patched it. But I got your back. If your Black Panther build is now not doing enough damage, you're struggling, I got you. I got some new gear pieces for Black Panther that I think you should be picking up now that the armor is gone and you don't have that to rely on. First, make sure you smash that like button, helps tremendously with the YouTube overlords, and make sure you subscribe, hit the bell icon so you never miss a video. We are on the road to 6,000 subs. That is the next sub goal. Appreciate you guys for helping me get this far. Let's get all the way to 1 million. Why not? So let's jump right into this. I'm going to be talking about my favorite Black Panther pieces that I've come across so far that I've been testing out in preparation for when, of course, they nerf the chest piece. So if you're a melee focused Black Panther character, I definitely recommend getting yourself some payload claws. As you see here, I got the faultless vibranium payload claws equipped, and the most important perk here that I think is very good and essential for a melee Black Panther build is the faultless vibranium payload. 44.1% chance melee critical attacks will activate a vibranium payload on the target, and I'm going to be showing you some footage of that. So what happens is when you do a melee crit, which happens often, especially when you have your Black Panther built properly, is they will apply the vibranium status effect, and you won't have to build up the meter. Like if you're using the heavy combo finisher, you would have to keep doing it to build up vibranium status on that enemy. But instead, once you get the melee crit, boom, the entire status meter is filled. They have vibranium on them, and vibranium, I think, goes very well with Black Panther in payload form, especially if you have Sonic on the range piece, which I'm going to be showing you as well. They also have a similar piece, but instead of vibranium, it does PIM. This is also quite good. Personally, right now, I prefer vibranium over PIM, because what vibranium does is once the enemy is filled with vibranium, they explode and they deal nearby vibranium damage to enemies that are in the area, and they also get hit with the vibranium and they also explode, and they're also taking damage from the initial explosion. So that one is a lot more disruptive if you're trying to do crowd control with Black Panther. I love the vibranium. PIM is also very good. The point is you want to have one of these. I wish they had Sonic, because I personally prefer Sonic. If it was a payload on the melee and just do vibranium on the daggers, because he also does vibranium with his King's Mercy Assault Heroic. So I think having Sonic as a payload would be much better, but I don't think it's in the game, at least as far as I can tell. But still very good. You can get both of these pieces, fortunately, at the gear vendor in Wakanda. Just as soon as you spawn in, It's downstairs. You go to the vendor, and they usually are selling these for some resources, so you don't have to go out farm them. You don't have to worry about RNG, opening chests, or anything like that. Just go to the vendor, pick these up. An alternative is faultless buff claws. These are of course pretty popular before among high level Black Panther players because of that new perk, faultless buff. The melee crit will grant a damage buff 27.3% of the time, and you also got Sonic on the heavy combo finisher. This is currently, in my opinion, the best way outside of the daggers to apply Sonic. You do the heavy combo finisher. It does an AoE attack and it spreads Sonic, but I much prefer the Vibranium payload, especially if you're going against the Super Adaptoid or something. It just takes way too long to apply status effect with heavy combo finishers. The payload on the melee crit is just way better. Definitely get one of these pieces. I think the way to build Black Panther going forward is to focus on applying status effects and using the battery effect to do damage, because he is not like Hawkeye, he is not like Thor, he's not like Hawk. He cannot do ridiculous amounts of damage to a whole room like they can. So this is, in my opinion, the way to do Black Panther going forward. Focus on abusing the battery effect, because Black Panther has a lot of pieces that allow you to do that. Case in point, this is another one from the vendor. This one has the pin payload for the melee crits, but it also has power attacks with cryo. The power attack for Black Panther is his pounce. So if you pounce, when you start clawing, it will do cryo. If you get the animation when you don't get the pounce, but you bounce off, it still applies cryo. So you can go in melee, put Pim on them, and then follow that up with cryo. By just doing the pounce. So that's another way of applying the battery effect. Black Panther seems to have gear, which I think is intentional, that has built-in battery effect into it. Pim being positive, cryo being negative. He has that on his range pieces as well, which I will go into. So I just picked this piece up today from the vendor. Same one in Wakanda. I haven't seen this one yet. Pim compress unit, good stats, valor, might, intensity. Great if you're doing a melee focus build. You see targeted Pim payload. So 24% chance that ranged crits will activate a Pim payload. Once again, the payload puts all of the status on. You don't have to build it up. All you need is hit a crit and boom, target shrinks. They have Pim on them. But they have the kinetic gamma ray, where the kinetic daggers deal gamma damage. So there you go, battery effect built into one gear piece. Positive Pim for the payload, negative gamma on the kinetic daggers. And for those that don't know, the kinetic dagger is Black Panther's ranged combo finisher, which you can spec into in the mastery tree here. You can switch to kinetic dagger, so the last knife throw on That combo will be a kinetic dagger. If you select this, and the kinetic dagger on that piece will do gamma after you've already applied Pimp. Really good if you're running a range focused build in particular, but also just good in general because you want to be using your daggers whether you're doing melee or ranged or not. Now back to the pieces. Black Panther also has another piece that does battery effect. This is Gauge of Bast. This comes from the villain sectors. When you do your daily villain sectors, your maestro, taskmaster, whatever, this is a piece that drops. Unfortunately, it only drops with range stats. I've been checking, and they do not drop with any other stats. So if you're a ranged build, this is really good. If you're a melee build, you're gonna have to take the hit on this one, but I personally don't recommend this if you're a melee build, because there is a better piece which I will show you in a minute. But as you see, devastating daggers deal shock, kinetic daggers deal plasma. Devastating daggers are anytime you're throwing the dagger that's not a finisher, that counts as a devastating dagger. So the last dagger you can spec into, like I showed you, the last dagger will be a kinetic dagger, which will do plasma, but all the other dagger throws you do before that will do shock. So if you just do your regular rotation of dagger throws, you will be doing both shock and plasma to the target, which is definitely very powerful, especially if you are on a ranged build.
They must be joking.
You definitely want to get this piece. Fortunately, it's not very hard to get. The only problem is that it is time gated. But if you're impatient, you can of course save scum, which means you go in, you do the villain sector, you don't get this piece, you go to the backup save, which is accessed from the main menu, load a backup save, try it again. But this one, in my experience, is very easy to get. It's not going to be a problem at all. Now, an even better perk that you want is Devastating Scream here. So I think Sonic does great with Black Panther, and I'm definitely wanting to have that in my builds when I'm doing melee. So what you want is Devastating Scream, ranged attacks with devastating daggers deal sonic damage. I think that is the preferred way to apply status effects with the daggers, because if you just have the status on say kinetic dagger, then you're only getting the status effect on that one throw. But if you have it on devastating daggers, then every time you throw the dagger, it is applying that status effect. So if you're on your Black Panther and you have this equipped and you check off on your range tree, this top one, Final Flourish, all of your dagger throws in a combo are going to do sonic. And when that happens, all the enemies will very quickly fill up with sonic. And then from there, I like to go in melee range, because when the enemies have sonic on them, not only are they stunned, but when you're near them, they are recharging your heroic meters as well as your intrinsic. So it is very powerful if you're melee focused. If you're a range focused Black Panther, then I don't recommend Sonic unless you're just trying to be a support type of character for your team and you know they are in melee range, so you want to have some Sonic. Otherwise, you don't necessarily need Sonic, but you do want to get whatever status effect you're applying. You want it on devastating daggers if possible. That's why this piece is good, because most of the daggers are going to be dealing shock, because shock is on the devastating daggers. And then you're going to be adding some plasma on that final throw. And that's good because shock is negative, vibranium is positive, and Black Panther naturally deals vibranium with his assault heroic. So if you're doing mostly shock, you can throw your vibranium and still get you can throw your King's Mercy and still get the benefits of the battery effect, even if you don't land that kinetic dagger throw. Now for the chest piece, which is where a lot of you will have a hole, I'm currently rocking out with the reactive buff. If the piece I have doesn't have the targeted buff, then I recommend going with the reactive buff, so that every time you take damage, you get a damage buff. The alternative, you can go Pym's contingency unit. When you parry an attack, Pym payload. There's also one that triggers when you take damage. You could also go for reactive empowerment. Similar to the damage buff, when you take damage, you get a burst of intrinsic energy. This is also very good. Worthy replacement for Nahanda's armor. Reflexive buff, similar thing. When you parry, 28% chance you get a damage buff. Black Panther does parry a lot. That's part of his moveset, so usually the reflexive buffs are useless, but on Black Panther, they actually can be worth picking up because he does parry a lot. These two exotics are also options you can go with. Battle Guard of the Ancestors, gain recovery beads for a brief duration after defeating enemies with intrinsic attacks or perfect evading. Essentially, these beads just hover around you for a few seconds, healing your willpower. You also get 20% increased stun status and all normal damage from your intrinsic attacks. And if you defeat enemies while Percussive Blast is active, you extend the duration by 2.5 seconds. That is, of course, your overcharge technique. When you are overcharged, double tap R2 and he lets off that shockwave, gets a damage buff. Very good. Now, you could also go for Omega Battle Guard. I actually got this from the Omega level threat event. 19% chance a successful parry grants a cosmic surge. Dealing damage while the buff is active restores a small amount of willpower and heroic energy. This is one of the best perks in the entire game. It's much better on the minor artifact because it triggers whenever you take damage, but also can be very good. But you have a reactive payload here, so 17% chance taking damage will launch a missile payload that deals cosmic damage to all nearby enemies. Once again, applying status. Once again, not fond of the stats. I don't like just proficiency and resolve, but still a solid piece. This one, of course, like I said, comes from the Omega level threat. Battle Guard, I believe I got this from the weekly priority mission. It is a hero set exotic. Reactive buff, you can get this from anywhere. I got this from farm. I got all of these from just doing the Black Panther farm. If you don't know that farm, check out my channel. There's also one that's pretty relevant if you're doing the event. If you go to Here Comes the Pain in Wakanda, the corruptive vibranium version. They have corruptive vibranium there as well that you can use for the farm. Either that or his story mission. You could also open chests, but one of those farms is the fastest way to get these pieces. That's pretty much all I did. I just destroyed the corruptive vibranium over and over again, reloaded checkpoint until I got a bunch of these pieces, and then I picked the ones with the best stats. The PIM contingency unit is the only one that I didn't. The PIM, this is, I believe, the only one that I didn't get from farming. I got this, I believe, from the vendor. Everything else you can get from just destroying corruptive vibranium and reloading checkpoint or opening chests. Doesn't matter. So those are my picks for some of the best Black Panther pieces that I think you should be looking for after the patch. I think they go very well with Black Panther builds and will help you feel powerful again after the patch. If you were having trouble with that before, I definitely recommend putting a build together using some of these pieces as the foundation. I'm going to leave you with some more gameplay. Thank you once again for tuning in. I'll have a Black Panther build later on in the week. Once I do some more testing, get some more pieces, I'll give you an updated melee Black Panther build. That's still where my focus is, so look out for that. I'm Sadat the Gamer, signing out.